Okay, I got cut off there when I got a phone call on my phone and I got cut off. So just to pick it up. So his point is that there's a hierarchy of art and there's a hierarchy of consumers, meaning that there's sort of rich people and poor people. Just to keep it nice and simple, there are rich people and there are poor people, and um, there are rich people and there are poor people, and there are also art for rich people and art for poor people. Um, and we can make so a simple way. This a really easy way to think about it is that like baseball or whatever is for regular people to go to, but the symphony is for fancy people. And that's an exaggeration. It's ridiculous. And baseball tickets are obviously expensive. But theoretically, this is what he's thinking of back then. And this gets a little more complicated when we get into the sort of internet world that we live in. But I'm going to talk about this more and sort of say a little bit about what connects these things. So let's go back to the text, which I'm keeping over here because it is sort of raining on and off, but I don't feel like being trapped under here all the time. Um, okay. He says this predisposes taste. This predisposes taste to function as markers of class. So this is interesting. He says that since there's art for rich people and art for poor people, maybe I can bring this out. Since there's art for rich people and art for poor people, that means that taste functions as a marker of class, meaning it's not simply that rich people go to rich people art and poor people go to poor people art. It's that in a complicated way, going to the symphony is a way of letting other people know you are rich. Um, it indicates it's so it's not this is the tricky part, and this my students always find this extremely confusing. It's not what my students tend to hear is that the social origins that you're born with determine what you like, but it's more complicated than that, because if there is art for certain groups, then you can advertise to other people that you either are a member of this group or you want to be a member of this group by liking this particular work of art. Um, and this is how it gets to be depressing and disturbing very quickly. But we will go and take a look at this. So um, it serves as a markers of class. So class, when he says class, he's thinking about rich people, poor people, so that the art you go to can let people know what group you're in, or, and here's where it gets really complicated, what group you would like to be in, or what group you would like to be a member of. All right, I'm going to elaborate this, and this is going to get more interesting in a bit, but I would love to close out this paragraph. So he says, the manner in which culture has been acquired lives on in the manner of using it. The importance attached to manners can be understood once it is seen that these imponderables of praxis, which distinguish the different and ranked modes of cultural acquisition, early or late, domestic or scholastic, and the classes of individuals which they characterize, such as pedants and mondaines. Culture also has its titles of nobility, awarded by the educational systems, its pedigrees, marked by seniority and admission to the nobility. So, like, we don't have, um, the way we do society now, right? We don't necessarily care. We don't like have knights and earls and squires and all of this stuff. In the old, like you think about in the old days, people would know that you were rich because your name might be I am Lord blah blah blah, and then be like, oh shit, he's a lord, right? Gentleman had a particular definition that had to do with like owning land. There used to be in the old days markers of social class, like you would be if you were a squire or you were a knight or you were right, and that was how you knew what level people were on. What Pierre Bourdieu points out is that there's essentially a new system of that involving the arts. That the art you like is letting people know what group you are in or what group you would like to be thought of as being a member of. And this is where it gets kind of complicated. Because on the one, it's a two-way street. One of the ways is that the group you're born into determines what art you like, but also the art that you like, you can use that to indicate what group you're in or what group you would like to be seen as a member of. And so this is the tricky thing about art in the way Pierre Bourdieu is talking about it. And because remember, he's a sociologist. So what he's really interested in isn't because this whole semester it's about individuals and what does art do. But he's interested in what it does for groups. And what it does for groups is it lets people know what group you want to be a member of, and what group you are a member of, and what groups you don't want to be a member of. Okay, so let's keep going with it a little bit more, and we'll pick this up. Okay. So he says the definition of cultural nobility is the stake in the struggle which has gone on unceasingly from the 17th century to the present day between different groups and their different ideas of culture and the legitimate relation to culture and to works of art, thereby differing in the conditions of acquisition of which these dispositions are the product. Even in the classroom, the dominant definition of the legitimate way of appropriating culture and works of art favors those who have had early access to legitimate culture in a cultured household outside of scholastic disciplines, and even within the educational system, it devalues scholarly knowledge and interpretation as scholastic or pedantic in favor of direct and simple delight. One of the things he's talking about here is that your education tells you what art you have access to or not. This is a really simple example of that in this class. I think as a result of taking this class, you are going to have, if you go visit a museum right now with someone who has not taken this class, say someone who is majoring in accounting at BMCC, if you have a friend of yours that's majoring in something else, and you go to the museum together, you're going to get a lot more out of that museum trip than your friend is, because you've taken this class, and this class has given you a lot to think about in terms of art. This class has made a larger group of art accessible to you because you understand where it's coming from. So the education that you have received in this class, even in something like Shakespeare, has helped to unlock art. And you're like, oh, I get this. This is interesting. Pierre Bourdieu's point is that as a result of this educational experience that you're having with me in this class, more art is accessible to you. But do you see how that's because you are college educated? If you go to the museum with someone who is not college educated, there is a very good chance, yes, there are exceptions. Of course, there are exceptions. There are always individual exceptions. Pierre Bourdieu doesn't give a shit about individual exceptions. He cares about trends in groups. And his point is that you, as a college educated person, specifically as someone who took my class, is going to understand a lot more about the art, which means you're going to like a different group of art because of your educational background. Because the other people don't even have the option of liking it because they don't even really understand it. Okay, I'm going to pick this up in the next video.